Hello everyone, welcome back to Pack Rat's Shack. This week I'm trying something new. I have known this is a technique that I've wanted to try ever since I got these tables, but that's been about 2 years. So I'm so excited to finally get to them. I have to warn you, it doesn't go exactly to plan. Let's see how these tables turned out. Hi, my name is Packy, creator of Pack Rat's Shack. I upcycle furniture, build out of pallet wood, finish interior spaces, and have a vendor booth for my creations. Welcome to my world. As you can see, some of the finish was ruined on the top. I'm wanting to highlight this beautiful oak that's underneath, so I jump in and start scraping. Even without the surface imperfections, I really have never been a fan of this orangey colored stain. It just has to go. As you can see, it's a very slow, tedious process, but there's something satisfying with each pass seeing the finish come off. After I get this corner section stripped, I was just too excited to see how much better it would look after a good sanding that I jumped ahead on this corner and sanded it with 80 grit paper. It cleaned off all of the remaining finish so well that I tried it out on the finish to see if it would eat through that better than the scraping did. I decided to just stick with the scraping after all. It was the faster option. No one ever really talks about how often they have to sharpen their tools. I had to sharpen the scraper blade about 4 or 5 times just on this small square table. I don't know if that's normal or if my tool is just not the best quality. I'm just stumbling through and I find that my metal flat file works a lot better at sharpening these than the tiny file that came with the tool does. Here you can really see the difference between the scraped zone and the sanded zone. This scraping tool came with 7 different blades with a different shape at each end, which gives me 14 options to choose from, which makes it a lot easier to get into and around all of these different details. I've been daydreaming about a surf prep sander for about a year or more now, but this gets the job done for now. I found that near the edges, gently scraping the scraper tool back and forth was the safest option. All 3 are scraped and sanded down at the 80 grit. They already look so much better. I have a different plan for the bases, so I take a break from the tops to start prepping the bases. I remove the hardware and start scuff sanding it all to prep for a good hold to the paint. Then I return to the tops and do a complete sand down with 120 grit paper. I followed that with a 180 grit. Then, of course, it's cleanup time. I use water with simple green on all of the bottoms, but I really don't want to add moisture to the open wood grains at the tops. This could cause some swelling, so I just remove any of the sanding dust with a tack cloth. While I'm cleaning the drawers, I discover I need to make several minor repairs. I also take the time to tighten my loose legs. The bolts were already bottomed out into their metal sleeves, so I added an extra washer which really filled in that loose space. I then set into the painting portions of this project. This was a never-ending story, which is the main reason this project took so long. I just used Valspar cabinet and furniture enamel paint, and I used the white right off the shelf. I've been informed that that is the most true, purest, whitest white you can get because you're not adding any color to it. Therefore, it is the whitest of whites, which I wanted a very white white. But I feel that through this project, I learned that because there's no added pigments, then the paint seems to be somewhat translucent. It's not as solid, and it takes more coats to get full coverage. I was not satisfied on the coverage of this project until I had 5 coats of paint on it. Every layer I completed, I continued to still see dark undertones showing through. Finally, on the 4th layer, I decided to do a stippling technique, which allows me to keep the paint on a little bit thicker. Now, because the paint is self-leveling and I'm not adding some kind of textural medium within it, I don't have to worry about this stippling technique leaving an actual texture behind. It will self-level and become pretty smooth. This technique did help a lot. It was a very noticeable difference, but after it dried, you could still see dark undertones showing through. This time it wasn't in the streaking marks left behind by brush marks, but they were little dabble marks left behind in the low section of the stipple. So in the end, I still had to apply a 5th coat, and now I think we're finally at full coverage. There were a few corners that I did break through the protective finish on while I was scuff sanding. I just keep hitting it with the Zinsser shellac spray until the tan and bleed through stopped. I mean, I had plenty of coats and time in between to keep checking this, right? Of course I did. Nothing like taking out all your frustrations in life on a defenseless oak slab of wood. Okay, this may look harsh, but actually it's only cleaning out the wood dust and debris from the deep graining within the oak. And I've been waiting a long time to do this. I know, I don't get out much, do I? I just think it's so cool to try something you've never done before and to see how it works and learn what you would do different next time while you're doing it. So I have to be honest here. The only reason why I'm using Voodoo Stain by Dixie Belle is because all of my other stains have already been moved down to Tennessee. And I debated between going to Lowe's and buying a second can of something I already had or supporting my local small business owners. Since I'm a small business owner and struggling, I decided to support my other local small businesses. Since I'm doing new techniques on this project anyway, I may as well try a new product for stain as well. And it just so happens to be right in the timing of some chaos that is surrounding Dixie Belle. Now, I don't know if anyone else is aware of it, and I'm not here to side with either party involved. I just want to say that I pass no criticism towards either side. I do not know all of the facts, and I consider it none of my business. I do, however, think that it can be a concern of mine to support my local small business owners, just like I need local people to support my business as well. I am not a Dixie Belle creator. But I will buy Dixie Belle products from my vendor neighbor who is a Dixie Belle retailer. I have had mostly good experiences with using Dixie Belle products. Buying products from her helps her small business instead of big box stores, but it also helps the overall business of Twice Treasure too, which is where my booth is located. So I do feel that that is where my responsibility lies. I do wish the best for everyone involved in the Dixie Belle chaos right now, and I hope a mutual resolution is made. It's kind of sad that those of us just trying to save unwanted pieces of furniture find ourselves having to explain our position just in order to not lose the small amount of viewer supports that we've managed to get. But the truth is that I will continue to use whatever products I feel I want to use at the time of whatever project I am doing. And there are many other companies of products that I have been looking forward to trying in the future. I just haven't fit them in yet. I've already done the small rectangle table and felt I had good results with pushing the wax into the open grain by going crosswise over the graining. Here on this oval table, it's not going so well. There is wax being deposited into the lower grooves of the grain, but for the most part, it is not deep enough to stay in while wiping away the excess. I do need to use some clear wax to help remove all of the excess white wax off of the top surface. Whenever you have a colored wax that you want to remove or it's on too thick and you want to lighten it, you can always use clear wax to erase any colored waxes. Watching this while editing, I'm thinking that I should have wiped off the excess by also going crosswise across the grain. That probably would not have removed as much of the white wax. But on this particular table slab, I'm thinking that wouldn't have mattered much. On this table, unfortunately, there isn't any sections that have the real nice deep graining. I keep trying, but it's time to move on and process a plan B here. My hands really are cramping up while applying the wax. Does anyone else have this issue with these thick wax brushes? I don't know what it is, but the ergonomics of these bulky handled brushes just don't work with my hands. They make me feel old and arthritic. I'm getting the perfect effect with the sofa table, but I have been noticing that the bristles of the brush pull wax back out of the grooves no matter how deep the graining is. This is happening more when I feel that the wax is becoming tacky. So I start pushing the wax in just with my fingertip because this seems to go across the top surface of the tabletop without digging down into the grooves where those individual little bristle brushes can still jab down into the grooves and remove stuff. Plus, this technique doesn't hurt my whole hand. So after that discovery, I go ahead and try working on the oval table again. I need to clean it off with mineral spirits in order to remove the wax and try cleaning out the graining a lot more aggressively with that bristle brush. I do have to clean the tabletop and brush with mineral spirits throughout the process in order to keep getting the wax off. After I'm done with that and I go ahead and push in more wax, this time using my finger to keep the deposits in as much as possible, I clean off the excess, and I do see that I have more deposited than I did the first try, but it is still not enough to tie in to the other two tables. The other two are beautiful, and it stinks that the this poor little oval table just doesn't fit in with the other two. So I then move on with plan B, which I'm sure I'm going to get comments on. But in my head, this pretty little oval table is going to become the jewelry piece of this set. Then, as that embellishment dries, I move on with Mambo number 5. Okay, just painting coat number 5. No dancing. You really can't see on camera these dark undertones that I'm telling you that I see in person. I'm claiming that I'm not crazy here, guys. It's really there. I'm not crazy. So I think it's time to get back to these embellishments. I really want to make sure they're nice and smooth and they're just lightly on the surface. So I know I'm going to have to knock down any of the high points. But before I go and sand those down, I want to see how well they've adhered to the top of the tabletop. And it seems like they're on there nice and strong. But if you actually do try with your fingernail, you can scrape them off. But I believe it's dry enough, so I go ahead and I sand it down and knock off all of the high points, and now I have a nice smooth surface again. As I told you, you can scrape it off if you wanted to. I'm not convinced that this embellishing wax will stay on the top of this table. I mean, if you can erase wax off of a piece with mineral spirits or fresh clear wax, then what's to say that a spilt soda or some kind of cleaning chemical won't wipe it right off? These have to be protected onto the piece. But I know you're not supposed to spray polyurethane over finishing wax. I'm not sure how those rules apply to these embellishing waxes. So I decide that I'm going to push my limits again just for the purpose of knowledge in the future, I guess. I'll let this dry a little bit longer until it's completely dry. And then while I'm polyurethaning the rest of the table bases, I decide to go ahead and risk it by spraying the top of this one table with polyurethane. The only reason I'm thinking that this might work is because I had to clean all of the finishing wax off with mineral spirits. So all of that kind of wax should be gone, and the only wax is this embellishing wax, which I'm hoping is possibly a different concept than the finishing wax. Only because I know I need to do something that's going to protect this stenciled embellishment that I put on it. As I'm doing coats to the rest of the bases, I keep checking back and it seems like it's drying fine. I don't see any weird chemical reaction going on, but I don't want to touch it. So I wait a little bit and I do add a second coat because I'm doing a second coat on all of the bases. I'm just putting this out there because I'm just hoping somebody with some quality feedback will get back to me on that. Well, I for one love how they all look. And although you might not agree, I think that little oval table is the pearl to this set. I think on the two bigger tables, after the wax tops cure completely, they'll be fine. But I wanted to give that little oval table 72 hours before I gave it a scratch test. So I'll update you in a post if something goes wrong with that. If you enjoyed this video well enough, please don't forget to hit that like button. Next week, I'm planning on finishing a custom light build for the half bath. So until then, stay safe out there.